Was Santa good to both of you and your families this year?
Yes, he was very busy, even though Canada Post definitely did not help him out this year. So he had extra duty to do, and we had some good Christmas parties. My husband actually did the rap from Die Hard with Run
Oh wow.
DMC, and William, you know my husband. Anybody who's ever met him, they don't believe me that he did the entire rap. But
Not at
how was
all.
Santa to you, Noah?
Well, pretty okay. The labor standards at the toy factory has been improving. You know, we finally got some breaks in between our shifts at the Elf factory. But no, I think Christmas is going to be a jolly one. And now that the Canada Post strike is gone, we could finally send off our season's greetings or whatever to the rascals in Canada or whatever.
You were
But no, I'm in the spirit.
You are definitely owning that elf hat, Noah. William, did Santa not bring you any Santa bling? What is going on?
It must be again in a Canada Post warehouse waiting to get delivered. I sadly don't have my Christmas stuff out anymore, but Christmas is in the heart anyway, not on the head or in the garments. It's in your heart, and that's where I
Wait,
keep my Christmas.
you don't have your Christmas stuff out. It's the season. You like put it away like December 5th? It's like no use for this anymore.
I'm that lady on the street. I keep all my stuff up past like Candlemas. I co-opt every other like Eastern Orthodox religion's calendar. Everything stays up till February. But speaking of staying up and getting started, let's get this show started. Welcome to a special Christmas and holiday edition of Off the Record. I'm Kris Sims. I am my day job is being the Alberta director for the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, but I just finished helping to make Christmas happen, so definitely in the spirit. Joined by my good friends from True North, William and Noah. Gentlemen, this is a special edition of Off the Record where we are giving thanks and reflecting on the year that was. Who wanted to start this off? William, you had a few things to impart to your favorite mayor in Canada. Is that what you told me?
Yeah, we try and keep Christmas with us all through the year. So I think it's important to look back over the last year. And in my case, I wanted to look back at beloved Calgary Mayor Jyoti Gondek, who, for anyone who lives in Calgary can tell you just the most beloved mayor Calgary has ever had. So today I'm here to talk about the four seasons of Gondek. We're going to talk through the year that Jyoti Gondek had, and it was quite one. Let's start with spring. In spring, Mayor Gondek said that being Canadian means never having to own a home or never being able to own a home, but it gives you so much freedom if you don't own a home. And I presume she meant freedom from economic opportunity, freedom from certainty for your future, freedom from having to have enough space to raise your family, to let your kids run around in a yard, and freedom to keep paying rent so that somebody else can build up equity in a home that you don't own. And you have to wonder what was going through Mayor Gondek's mind when she came up with this. It is actually a reflection of something the World Economic Forum, just another organization that so many True North people love and think so highly of. When the World Economic Forum said, in the future, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. And I remember we all thought at the time, or you'll own nothing and be miserable
Mm-hmm.
because you have nothing of the things that you want, like a car or a home or the savings so you can retire or even enough food to feed your family during tough and high economic times. So that was Jyoti Gondek's spring, and she headed into summer. Summer was a great time. Calgary ran out of water. There was no water in Calgary all summer, and for days on end, Mayor Gondek said nothing. We had no update from her. And eventually, when people started to burn her in effigy, which was really dangerous because there was no water to put out the fires afterwards, she finally said, maybe I should have done a better job of explaining why Calgary didn't have any water for weeks and weeks on end. Um, and then, not to be outdone, we got to the fall, and Jyoti Gondek said, I have searched high and low. I have read every line item in the budget, and we're going to have to raise your taxes because there isn't a single place that we can find to cut spending. And about 15 minutes later, Calgarians gave her thousands of ideas for how to save money. They included things like fire everybody who works in the diversity, equity, and inclusion division, or get rid of the climate change directorate, or stop building bike lanes that nobody uses 90% of the time. And finally, because I think she had such an incredible year, reaching the lowest popularity of any mayor in Calgary since polling began, Jyoti
Oh,
Gondek,
really? Oh
yes,
my God.
reaching the lowest level of popularity since polling was invented in Calgary. Jyoti Gondek was named Mayor of the Year by a magazine none of us have ever heard of. And so, to me, doesn't that really just sum up? I can tell you it's based in Ontario, this magazine. And I actually think that's pretty fitting. Jyoti Gondek is a mayor for the good people of Toronto, maybe, not the good people of Calgary, who, frankly, if an election were held today, would toss her onto the slag heap of failed former politicians. So I really loved our our year of Jyoti Gondek. I think it just showed what a wonderful leader we have in her, from raising taxes to taking away our water to saying stop wanting to own a home, you aspirational people. You'll be much happier if you just give in to your poverty and start to love it. And finally, the crowning touch, an Ontario based organization, without talking to any Albertans, presumably, made her mayor of the year. So we wish Jyoti Gondek a very happy Christmas. I hope she's asking for better policies and a higher public approval rating for Christmas this year from Santa.
I've noticed a theme, both with WEF types and the rest of them who say things like, you should be really happy you're not owning a home. Think of the freedom you'll have. They own houses. It's always about the other people. It's always about the other people with these utopian champagne socialists who say that, oh, you little working class peasants, you don't need to own a private car. You don't need to own your own home. But for the rest of us, of course, we'll continue to eat our fancy veal steak things on planes, which is exactly what Prime Minister Justin Trudeau just finished doing. They spent $70,000 on food alone to jet to Europe very recently. So lots to chew on from this past year. Noah, what was your reflection for the year that was in 2024?
Well, the one thing that I like to reflect on is the rise of the conservative movement in 2024. A lot more optimistic than what William had to talk about. By the way, you guys can keep contact. We don't want her in Ontario. But yeah, so the conservative movement has really seen a resurgence in 2024. I mean, this has been a while in the making after 9 years of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's premiership, and we've had premiers like David Eby and the NDP ruling in BC for over a decade. We've seen just an overall tiredness that the Canadian people have with left wing leadership. We have a lot of people turning toward conservatism and conservative ideas. We also have young people coming toward the conservative movement. So there's a few things I want to highlight to really talk or to exemplify what I mean by the rise of the conservative movement. On the issue side, we've had Premier Danielle Smith taking a step forward in banning puberty blockers and hormone therapy for children under the age of 16 in Alberta, and banning gender reassignment surgery in Alberta. This is in continuation of a policy that former premier in New Brunswick, Blaine Higgs, had implemented, where he would force teachers to let parents know if their child is going by a different name or different pronouns or by a different gender in school. And we've had Premier Scott Moe express interest in doing this. And we also had conservative leader Pierre Poilievre defend Premier Smith's decision to implement the ban on puberty blockers and gender reassignment surgery for minors. I was at the press conference in Brampton where he stated that, well, he was kind of bashing a Canadian press journalist, but then he expressed his support for Premier Smith's policy. So it's a win for the conservative movement, because the conservatives have for a long time been trying to get politicians, and conservative politicians in particular, to react to their wants and demands on social issues, and they've had a lot of difficulty getting that done. But it seems as if the tide is turning, and now conservative politicians are willing to talk about these very important social issues and to take action on it. The second thing I want to talk about on the issues front is immigration. Conservative politicians for a long time have been very cautious about talking about immigration. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, before 2024, and not only didn't really talk about cutting immigration, he actually, in some comments to some minority groups, would say that he would like to increase immigration, at the very least speed up approvals in the immigration system. But the conservative movement has pressed forward, and you can thank members of True North like Harrison Faulkner for talking a lot about the immigration issue. And you have now conservative leader Pierre Poilievre promising to cut immigration. He got one of his MPs recently elected, who was recently elected, I forget his name, to make a video talking about the problems with the immigration system. And we also even have the federal government themselves talking about immigration and the need to cut immigration, and admitting that they have made a mistake ramping up immigration levels for new citizens to 500,000 a year, over a million, say, international students. We have temporary foreign workers coming in, really inflating the population, driving down wages, and just overall making housing a lot less affordable. So on the immigration front, and on the gender issue, we have conservative politicians start to talk about it, and this is translating to electoral results. In British Columbia, we've seen the collapse of the former BC Liberal Party, now the BC United Party, who is really a centrist party, a coalition between liberals and conservatives federally, and we've seen them being replaced by an unabashedly conservative party, the BC Conservatives, led by John Rustad, who, in the legislature, talk frequently about how schools have these books in their libraries that is basically pornographic. They show kids how to do disgusting things. They show kids how to like masturbate and all this. I don't even like talking about it, but this is important issues for politicians to tackle. And this party is the one that has formed the official opposition. They almost won the election. They lost by the skin of their teeth, and they're in prime position to win an election in BC when the next one happens. We also had in Nova Scotia, progressive conservative leader Tim Houston expanding his majority, the first time that that has happened in Nova Scotia in several decades. And he's a bit of a progressive conservative, but nonetheless, it shows that the Liberal Party brand, especially in Nova Scotia, is dwindling, it's diminishing. We've seen Scott Moe get reelected, and we've also seen Blaine Higgs get defeated. But there is a lot of support that was expressed for Premier Higgs across the country. And, to cap it all off, Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre is very popular, especially in contrast to Justin Trudeau. So the rise of the conservative movement has been very fascinating to watch, especially in 2024. And for conservatives like you and the people watching this video, more than likely, I think that there's a lot to be happy about in this year, and some optimism in the future.
On the fiscal and government accountability fronts, there's been a massive change too. You can feel it. It feels like an earthquake. So, for example, I don't know if anybody noticed, but there was an election in the United States. And one of the things that is happening as a result of that is this whole Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE. It's now cool to talk about things that Ron Paul has been talking about now for generations. The founder of the Americans for Tax Reform, Grover Norquist, said it very well. He wants government to be small enough that you can drown it in a bathtub. And he says that because he wants to be able to hold government to account. So if you have smaller government, A, it saves you money, and B, it makes it easier to hold that government to account. So hearing that kind of language being used in the United States, where Elon Musk and friends are getting together and apparently going through line by line. I just finished watching him go through an omnibus bill, which was bigger than like 6 New York City telephone books. To have such interest coming from cool people, the young people on social media are watching and getting influenced by. It's not just us old guard, William, who are watching this stuff. To make smaller government great again is wonderful to see. And to have all these different political leaders, including, like you just pointed out, Noah, there in British Columbia, and also with the win in Nova Scotia and the popularity of Mr. Poilievre, all saying we need to scrap the carbon tax. This is huge. This is enormous, because 10 years ago, it wasn't the cool thing to say. And to see that we might actually get this thing finally gone is something I am deeply thankful for this past year. So, and that's because of folks who are watching this show, frankly. I mean, there's a tiny handful of us who are commentators in this arena. It's because of the millions of people who watch all of our shows, who then send emails to their members of parliament, who phone their MP, who door knock, who get out there on a Wednesday night in the rain and actually do the work. That's what changes politicians' minds. So good job, everybody, for pushing for these changes. Did we want to get to our fun, naughty, and nice list here from the Taxpayers Federation, or do you had something else to say there, William? I'm sorry I called you old.
I was just going to jokingly say, I hope that cutting wasteful government spending does become the thing that everybody wants to do, because it's the cool thing, including, I'm hoping, maybe Mayor of the Year Jyoti Gondek, who said she couldn't find a single place to cut spending in Calgary, and that's why we have to have higher taxes this year. So, be cool, Jyoti. Be like the cool kids and start cutting.
Yeah. I don't know how much money it costs, but the city of Calgary prints signs and puts them in their parks as to how to jump into a leaf pile. I'm not kidding. Taxpayers pay for that.
I didn't know how to do that. Wow.
Well, thank God for government. All right. So every year, the Canadian Taxpayers Federation puts together a naughty and nice list when it comes to taxpayers' issues and politicians. My friend Franco Terrazzano and I presented all of this at a press conference in Calgary. You can go back and watch the flourish from there if you want to see me in a different Christmas outfit. You've been warned. But we wanted to go through our naughty and nice list and open it up to you guys for your commentariat. Let's start with naughty. Okay, so top of our naughty list for the Canadian Taxpayers Federation is CBC CEO and President Catherine Tate. Now, I must say, I was a little torn on this. I kind of wanted to put her on the nice list a little bit, because nobody has done a better job making the case to defund the CBC than Catherine Tate. So she is presented at committee a bunch of times, and each time she digs her hole deeper. So Catherine Tate, the CEO and president of the CBC, she pulls in about $500,000 per year. She is unaccountable. She refuses to say whether she will take a severance, saying that's a personal matter, even though every nickel comes out of taxpayers' money. So the president of the CBC, Catherine Tate, she's topping our naughty list because she wastes a ton of money, and they handed out huge bonuses last year. Folks who are watching might remember the foofara this time last year when they said, oh, we're broke, we're so broke, we're going to hand out pink slips and layoff notices into our newsroom. I don't know, by the way, how many jobs were actually lost from that, but they handed out the slips nonetheless. Right after that, they turned around and handed out the bonuses, $18 million worth. So much so that groups, cheerleading groups of the CBC, like Friends of Canadian Media, said that this is unbecoming of a public broadcaster to do so. So good job, Catherine Tate. You're topping the naughty list for the Taxpayers Federation. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. I mean, take a reason.
Pretty obvious.
Pick a reason. Yeah, exactly. This year, we're giving it to him for a few different reasons, namely officially doubling the debt. So the national debt, picture all of the previous prime ministers, Harper, Mulroney, the first Trudeau, Diefenbaker, all the way down the railroad to Sir John A. Imagine their world wars, their Great Depressions. Imagine the debts incurred. Double it. That's what this Trudeau has done in less than 10 years. So Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, definitely on our naughty list. And lastly, this may come as a bit of a surprise, but Ontario Premier Doug Ford made the list. So one nice thing is that Premier Ford has kept his fuel tax cut going. So that's nice. But there's a big one. He broke a big promise. Premier Ford said he would get rid of what we would call political welfare, or what people call the per vote subsidy. Some folks may not realize this, but taxpayers' money is going directly to political parties. We don't care if it's the Conservatives or the NDP or the Green Party, or remember the Yogic Flyers? Do you remember that back in the day, William? Yeah. So sorry, Noah. There used to be this party back in the 80s, and they used to do crazy yoga. I'm not joking. You think I'm making this up? You're pulling my leg. No, go back and look it up. Hennig,
Yoga.
Doug Hennig, was that his name?
I think it was the Natural Law Party.
Natural Law Party. So my point is, we don't care which political party it is. You shouldn't be taking taxpayers' money. But unfortunately, Premier Ford is extending their tenure of taking Ontario taxpayers' money and giving it to political parties. Not just his, but all political parties in Ontario. So yeah, your tax dollars are going for those lawn signs and junk mail that everybody loves. So that's the key players on our naughty list for this year. Let's end on a nice note, though. Oh, sorry. Any thoughts on our naughty list? Anybody that you guys would like to pinch in there as a nomination?
I mean, I had to laugh at Justin Trudeau because, I'm quite sure as the Prime Minister comes to the end of his time in office, he often thinks about his legacy. And at least when it comes to the debt, he gets to say, I've done more than all of the Prime Ministers of Canada before me combined. And that's a claim few Prime Ministers can make. Now, it turns out in this case, it's indebting the country and millions of future generations, but at least he can say I've done more than all of my predecessors combined. I'm sure that will make him feel warm and cuddly as he lies in his taxpayer-funded bed, eating his taxpayer-funded food and flying on his taxpayer-funded jets.
Noah?
Yeah, I want to comment on Ford because he has been pretty disappointing since he got elected. I remember in 2018, I wasn't even following politics that closely in 2018, but he promised to, get rid of the sex ed curriculum in schools, and he promised to cut taxes, and he hasn't done either of those things. And specifically, he just, instead of cutting taxes, he's going to send $200 rebate checks to every Ontarian. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't think the average Canadian household is going to be held over by $200 when they're being gouged at the pump, and they're being gouged at the grocery store, not by the corporations, but by the inflationary policies of governments. So just crapping up these $200 when the province is already in debt, and we are funding this $200 with taxpayer dollars. And even if we're funding it through debt, we're still gonna have to pay back that debt at a later date, plus all the debt servicing charges. So in the long run, we're actually paying more for this than the $200, plus the cost to administer giving out these checks. It baffles the mind why someone who runs a nominally conservative party would do this. I mean, I get it. Like, he's trying to buy votes. It's pretty explicit. But for someone who claims, made a big song and dance about the Liberals being so bad and fiscally irresponsible, it makes no sense. But yeah, good inclusion, Doug Ford, because a lot of you Albertans out there, you guys ignore, try to ignore us because we ignore you. But
Mutually exclusive. Ignoring.
Yeah, it's mutual exclusive ignoring. So I'm proud of the that you guys included that. Our lackluster premier. I don't want to say things that'll get me fired, but our lackluster premier that loves to spend and not do anything on the tax front.
Okay, that's enough attention for Toronto. Okay, do we want to get to the nice list? Okay, so let's leave on a nice note. So the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, we also put together the nice list. You can find all of it on our website, taxpayer.com. But here are the three headliners. So first off, the Parliamentary Budget Officer. So take it from us, being the guy with the calculator constantly saying no in Ottawa doesn't get you invited to the fanciest of parties. It's not the funnest place to be. But Parliamentary Budget Officer keeps on trucking. And in particular, we find it very interesting that he keeps crunching the numbers. He's made a list. He's checked it 3 times now with the carbon tax and has put to bed this canard coming from the Trudeau government that most Canadian families get more back in the carbon tax rebates than they pay in. Number one, that's just not true. Anybody with a modicum of common sense knows you can't give the government a $20 bill and expect a $50 back at no cost to you. It's not how money or math works. And 2, he did the deep dive. So he looks at the economic impact. So the fact that farmers have to pay the carbon tax to heat their barns and dry their grain. Truckers have to pay the carbon tax to deliver literally everything we need in this country, umpteen times over. So yeah, at the end of the day, most Canadian average families are still out money because of the carbon tax. And for that reason alone, we are naming the Parliamentary Budget Officer to our nice list. Next up is Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe. So next door here to Alberta, Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe was in kind of a unique position in the sense that they have a crown corporation in Saskatchewan when it comes to delivering their home heating / power. And he dislikes the carbon tax so much that he is refusing to collect the carbon tax on Saskatchewan's bills. And on average, depending on how you crunch the math, that's saving people around $400. So that is some serious dough, especially this winter. So kudos to Premier Scott Moe for fighting against the carbon tax with every tool that he has. And lastly, rounding out our Taxpayers Federation nice list is right here at home, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith. Now, there's many things that Premier Danielle Smith is doing, including fighting back against the Trudeau government's gun grab. There's some really good stuff coming out of the Smith government right now. And she's also keeping the budget balanced here in Alberta. We're watching you. And she's promising to make good on her promise to cut the provincial income tax. That's a very good thing. And again, got to make that happen. And we've been told that that's going to happen during the budget. The main thing we're giving her kudos for, though, nationally, is that she's come over the top rope back into this court fight against the carbon tax. So folks might remember we had a bit of a setback with the carbon tax at court where they basically said, yeah, it's fine because it's national, et cetera, et cetera. Well, then the Trudeau government really stepped in the bear trap because they gave an exemption to home heating oil or furnace oil, which primarily is only used in the region of the Maritimes, Atlantic Canada. That's no longer national. So really stepped in it there. And now Premier Danielle Smith has stepped right up. So the province of Alberta going back to court, directly fighting the carbon tax based on that ruling. So we think at the Taxpayers Federation that we've got a good shot of winning that, but it takes effort and it takes courage to go up against Ottawa. So kudos to Premier Danielle Smith. She's rounding out our nice list for 2024. Gentlemen, any parting thoughts to our viewers here for this holiday season, this special episode of Off the Record?
Well, I just had to laugh on the naughty list because I think how many of them are there because of the carbon tax, and boy, they're going to hate when they get coal in their stockings for being naughty. If you could think of a group of people who would less like to see coal than some of these lefty politicians who love carbon taxes, I would be amazed. Personally, I love a good lump of coal. It'll burn it, keep you warm, cook your steak on the barbecue. You can do so much with coal. A lot more useful than some of our elected officials.
It's very Dickensian, and actually there is a carbon tax on coal. You can go find it on the federal government website. Noah?
No, I appreciate you, Mrs. Claus, for putting together that list. Me and the elves have been working tirelessly to make sure we have enough coal reserves at the factory to give out to all these naughty politicians, and giving out some Lindor chocolates to the politicians who have been doing an okay job fighting for taxpayers. But what is really fascinating about the contrast between Danielle Smith and Doug Ford is that Doug Ford, he came into politics on not the same agenda as Daniel Smith, but sort of like a populist rah-rah leader who was going to fix the problems with their province. And with the radically different approaches that these leaders have taken to managing their province's finances is really stark. And every time I go to Alberta, I tell all Albertans, like, you guys have your complaints, sure, they're valid. At the same time, you guys have a great premier in contrast to us. We're languishing in Ontario. Be thankful. I know it's not Thanksgiving, but be thankful that you got a gift dropped down on your door a few years ago. And we've been dealing with a lump of coal sitting in a chair for 6 years.
All right, folks. Well, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for watching all year long. Until next year, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and have a safe and happy New Year here at Off the Record.
just listening to Noah complain endlessly about his working conditions, you would think he'd remember that here in Canada, we have universal health care.
And he should be, you have access to a
Oh.
waiting list, Noah. You should be thankful.
Do I
Yeah,
not
no,
get a pity laugh for universal health care?
Oh, did you say
it was
elf
good.
care? I
It was
didn't hear
good.
you.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very good. I'm sorry. That was very good. It
Universal
wouldn't have been a
healthcare.
pity laugh. I just didn't hear you.
Yeah, but the problem is, Mrs. Claus can only give so many foot rubs, to all the elves at one time. So it's not exactly
Yeah, there's a waiting list. That
good
is
and
the
efficient.
problem
Yeah,
with
exactly. There's a
universal
long
health care.
waiting
Yeah.
list.
Health care. Oh,
Exactly.
that was pretty good. Sorry, William. I would have laughed at you.